Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the HEADSPACE podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Howard, and I should be with Unger, but unfortunately, plans changed and he couldn't make it because he's got work like a bum. So today's a very special episode because we have a special guest, and I'm really glad to have him on the podcast. We talked about him in the first one, we mentioned him, and I said, you know what, it might be great to have him as a guest, and we're so lucky to have him here. He's traveled the world, he's done so many things, and he's going to talk about a lot of this stuff today. I'd like to introduce my guest, Mr. Ryan Sutton over here on my right.
Hello. Nice to be here, Trevor.
Oh, yeah, no problem. So, for those that don't know, Ryan Sutton and I went to high school together, and we didn't really know each other until about junior year, senior year, when we ended up in the same homeroom doing the same work. And we were in this class and club, which we worked on media projects for the school. And so that's when we became, close, I guess. And we just used to bounce ideas off of each other and make skits and everything. It was a lot of fun. And, you can tell the rest of the story. So after high school, you decided not to go to college, and you decided to do study abroad, right? Or work abroad?
Right. So there's actually this organization called Workaway, and pretty much in short, you're able to work as a volunteer for hosts all around the world in exchange for food and shelter. Okay. So after high school, I went into Southeast Asia and began my work there, traveling, experiencing the culture. And as you can imagine, a whole lot of stories came from a solo 18-year-old traveler in a country that doesn't speak English.
Yeah, right. So how many countries did you travel in total?
So I started in Malaysia. I was there for 3 months for the whole 90-day visa that they give you. Okay. And I traveled up to Thailand. I stayed for the visa they gave me there, and I went into Vietnam. And as I'm sure I'll tell the story coming up, a whole lot happened along the journey. Yeah. And I ended up here in Buffalo, New York.
Okay. Right. And this was, honestly, comparing this to college, this must have been a whole different experience for sure. Like, I don't know how fun it was for you. I'm sure it was a lot of fun because you got to do a lot of things, right? But like, it just seems like I went to college. So I was at college for a year, and it was one of the most boring experiences of my life. But you got to travel the world, and it's crazy to think about that. Would you think that, like, going to college, would you want to go to college still or no? Like, you probably don't have to now, but like, would you rather take the opportunity to go travel the world again, like if you could go back, or would you go to college?
I've thought a lot about this, Trevor.
Yeah.
I've thought about the traditional path versus the path that I'm taking here. And college is an amazing opportunity, and I'm so thankful that it's so well used in our society. Right. But for me, it should be used, not a given. If there's something specific I'd like to study, get a certification and become a professional, and yes, I'd go to college. But I feel as though the time 18, 19 years old, I'm not trying to be a professional in anything. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to make sure the world knows that I know nothing and I am nothing. And all I'm trying to do is experience what is here already and see my part in it.
That's interesting. That's a really interesting point of view. So one thing I didn't point out was the fact that I don't know when you started this, but I know when I knew you in high school, you did not use like an iPhone. You weren't on social media. You tried to stay away from that stuff. Tell me about how that kind of changed you. Like, what year did you start that? Did you say you were 16 when that happened?
Right. So a lot of things lead back to around the age that I was 16. Mm-hmm. It was an awakening for me. A whole lot of change happened at once, and pretty much I had this cultural, almost a sickness of our culture. I didn't like the food, I didn't like the smog, I didn't like the pollution, and I felt like I was becoming polluted. So I decided I would run away. I packed my bags, I wrote a note, and my mom, the day that I was planning on running away, she asked me to go on a hike. So I go on this hike with her. long story short, I ended up breaking my cover and told her about my plans. And she looked at me, and at first she said, Ryan, you know this is intellectually absurd. And I realized that, and then I came to her from my heart, and I told her, listen, Mom, I know this doesn't sound normal or anything, but I need to go. I feel as though the pollution around me is becoming internal pollution, and I need a big change. I need to go with an indigenous tribe, learn how to live off the land, all of this. And those were my thoughts.
Yeah.
She taught me patience. She said, graduate high school and you will have our blessing to go travel. But you need to graduate. You need to, have a license, be able to get hotel rooms, all of these little things that, of course, intellectually I understood. So around that time, I realized I couldn't make the big step out into the jungle, but I needed to make small steps, see what I could control. And I remember this prayer from high school. It's grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change.
Yeah.
To change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Right.
Changing the things I could, I saw the pollution that I was supporting in my life. Unhealthy foods, social media, scrolling, all of these things that I supported, pornography, all of this. So I did away with the cell phone. I felt like it was the root of all of it. I did away with sugary foods. I tried to live as simply as possible in the surroundings that were not living so simply.
Yeah. Like I honestly, I if I had the balls to do what you did, which is like put away my phone and try and live off the land for a little while, I feel like I would probably be so much happier with my life. And like it's such a difficult thing for me to do because like social media really is still addictive. And I know when we sat in the car and I met you the other day and like talked to you about it, it's still like something I hate. I absolutely hate the way it's become, the way it's transformed. Social media. I know I understand that it's like supposed to keep us connected and everything, but the way that it's turned into something that's more not, I mean, I guess toxic and like kind of addictive, and it just doesn't seem like it doesn't add up to the rest of what the world has to offer. Like you could go outside and do whatever, and you could like see the world in your eyes, but like as opposed to doing that, people are just looking at pictures, and like instead of going outside or meeting people, they just text them. And I think that kind of prevents a lot of social interaction, and it prevents a lot of like it kind of blocks friendships in a way, And it's like I obviously you've been off of social media since you were 16, so like 3 years, right?
Yeah, something like that.
And it's like the difference, it's everything has changed to be kind of aggressive in a way, and I think that we could do a lot better with how we handle social media as opposed to relying on it for every need. I mean, I personally, like, if I had a choice, right? Because I'm majoring in mass communications, so I literally have to kind of keep up on these things. If I had a choice, I'd probably not have a phone, or I'd have like a flip phone like you did. And my dream would be to live somewhere like far out, away from, like in a small town in a state that no one really kind of recognizes, Yeah. Honestly though, I know it's funny, and I still want that dream, but like I think it would do a lot better for my mental health. Because I don't think a lot of people realize that a lot of their depression and a lot of the pain that they go through is because of the way people act on social media.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't understand a lot of these perspectives on people. But then again, like I said, like we talked about before with the uniqueness, I mean, every person has their own uniqueness, so you shouldn't like, judge them based on what they say. But it's interesting to me. I guess to kind of branch off of that for a question for you, how do you feel about like a technologically advanced society? Are you for it? Or are you against it? What's your opinion on that?
Good question. So, I mean, I've been flowed for so long on this, sometimes severely against it with climate anxiety
Yeah.
and feeling the pain body of the world. and the separation from nature. And but if I begin to talk about my past self, then we could talk for years and years. So rather, I'll talk about my present state with all of this.
Yeah.
I feel as though it's our duty to connect with life and death, living, growing food, seeing where the food comes from, making connections, looking somebody in the eye, hugging somebody, kissing somebody, feeling really here, the truth of this world. From there, technology can aid us in all of these things. It can aid us, but what we have done is allowed it to layer upon, so we forget what's at the base level. It's like when your room gets so dirty and you forget that there's a floor. You end up just stepping on clothes and stuff, and that becomes your floor.
Right.
For me, I believe it's about a reconnect. And from there, we can aid ourselves in living, and it wouldn't take away from mental health because there's separation from nature. It wouldn't take away from our physical health because there's separation from the earth and what we're eating. It's about connection with the natural world.
Yeah.
And from there, technology stems. Technology becomes natural as well because it's has natural influences.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that statement too. Like the idea of like it's kind of we're on this path where we should focus on reconnecting as opposed to kind of pushing away from what we live in the daily lives. Because like a lot of people don't realize the problems that we face. They don't really take attention to that. I was one of those people that kind of just like pass it off. I mean, to be completely honest with you, like I never believed in climate change until I started like seeing some differences in my life, and I was like, okay, well this might be an issue, and a lot of people don't really take notice to that. But like, I mean, even like nature in itself, like it's strange to see that people are. I mean, here's an example. I was at Chestnut like just a couple weeks ago, and this girl had, I guess, walked there, but she was not really focusing on the beauty of the nature. She was on her phone listening to music, just sitting on the stairs and like going through her like phone. Like even like when you're at a party or like have a bonfire or something, you're surrounded by all these people and someone's telling a story. Me personally, I will never pull out my phone if someone's talking. I understand if you need to answer a text and it's important, but like when you're scrolling through social media at like a bonfire or a celebration for somebody, I think it's disrespectful, but people are just so like tuned to do that. And it's kind of this disconnect between, hey, maybe we should kind of lay off the idea of technology for a little bit. Like I wonder how different it would have been if we were raised in a generation without cell phones, Obviously, like our parents lived in that generation. They had phones, but they had like the dial-up connection phones and they had the landlines. And I feel like a world without social media might be better off because we might be able to understand some problems and we might be able to like connect a lot better, because a hug is definitely more appealing than sending an emoji. Like you feel the connection with someone when you hug them, not like you don't feel a connection. Sure, you feel a bit appreciated when someone sends you a heart emoji or like a laughing emoji, whatever, but like a physical connection between someone, it's completely different.
And all of these problems, it's such existential problems that come down to our daily life, and then it comes down to a disconnect with your own physical body. For me, having these years away from the social media and all this, just the other day I decided I wanted to put all of my composed music that I have recorded up on SoundCloud. So
right.
I start just trying to do that, and I noticed for 4 hours I'm sitting hunched over at the laptop. I stand up after, I'm sore. I haven't been sore in like a
and
then moving and then moving. And then it can lead to so many health problems and obesity because you just want to eat enough so you can be sustained to open your eyes to watch Netflix.
All right, yeah.
And it's a cycle,
Well, I mean, you were active pretty much every day, You were going out doing things, so like I'm sure it got tiresome, but like you were at least like getting out doing stuff all the time. I mean, you worked labor like in Colorado. You were telling me like that was you worked on a farm basically, so you were doing hard work all the time.
That's right. And
Right.
the craziest thing is I was never tired and I was never sore. It was living outside. Over in Malaysia, I lived in a tent for a month. I lived in a broken down shack for a month that maybe we'll be able to get a picture up on the podcast or something.
Yeah, if you want to send that to me. Yeah.
For sure. It's to live outside is to work with the breath, to be in communion. You never hear about a bird that's tired. It's like a bird flies, and then as soon as it starts to feel fatigue, it lands on a branch. It recharges, continues to fly. The whole time it's living with nature, living with breath, living with activity constantly.
Yeah.
It's when we say, all right, I'm going to go on my laptop for 4 hours, then I'm going to go lift weights for 2, and then go on my laptop for 6 more hours. It's like, that's tiresome. That's draining. That's sore.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, do you think it's a mindset thing that you're not so tired all the time? Do you think it's like your not mental state, but like it's a mindset that you have where you're just not focused on being tired, you're focused on getting stuff done and focused on like living? Do you think that's part of the reason why you don't feel so tired quickly?
I'm sure that's part of it.
Yeah.
To be motivated, right?
Right. Well, yeah.
To be motivated by the right things. If you're at the gym and you're lifting weights and looking at yourself in the mirror as you're doing bicep curls, and you're only looking at yourself saying, oh man, I look good now, but I'll look so much better in a month if I keep on doing this every day. Like, that is tiring to me because you're not seeing yourself in that moment as steady, supported, beautiful, or perfect. You're just seeing yourself as something that will be rather than something that is already in this moment, en este momento, en esta realidad.
Yeah, no, I completely see that. Like, I mean, I'm editing this podcast, so I was sitting down for like 2 hours, and I just realized it's like I'm staring at a screen for 2 hours. I need to get up and stretch because it fucking hurts. It's like, oh, I cannot do this for that long without like, I mean, this whole quarantine thing has got me kind of whack. I guess that's the only, for lack of a better term, because like I want to get out, I want to go like hiking and stuff, and the weather hasn't been much of a help with that. But like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you got to wear a mask, you got to go out and do things, and it's like, I mean, I hang out with my friends still, and maybe it's dangerous, and I understand that, and I'll probably get shit for it, but like I cannot stay cooped up inside all day. I hate the idea of being surrounded by technology. I hate the idea of like living that life. Like just being, I would much rather be talking to you like in person, but I have to do this over a call. And it's like living in a life of, I mean, that goes back to my original question. Like, I hate the idea of a technologically advanced society. I mean, have you seen, I don't know if you've heard of like what they're doing now, because you've been off of social media. I'm going to keep saying that. But like they're working on brain implants with computer chips, and it's like, I understand the practical uses for like medical stuff, sure, but would I want to live a life where I'm part technological, part cyborg, I guess, like living a life where you can basically have a phone in your head and you wouldn't have to worry about charging it, you'd just see it in your eyes, or whatever, however they're doing it. I hate that idea. I genuinely hate that.
I think when we're talking about all these advancements, and on the farm, these are the things we're joking about.
Right.
We start brainstorming like, okay, what's the next step from here? It's like, okay, they install 5G. That's rapid communication, speed of light. We're already there. Okay, now they just put chips in, install it in schools. The kids never know any different. All of these things. But to reconnect with nature before making these decisions, asking the question, not can we, but should we?
Should we? Yeah, no, I completely agree with the should we part. Like, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth, because I feel like it'll only bring more to our destruction. And like I was saying earlier with the whole like social media and cell phone and depression thing, I feel like, not to get dark, but I do feel like if you have a computer chip in your head, and let's say that you're getting all these notifications all the time, and let's say social media hasn't changed and it's still toxic, and you're seeing this, there's no way to like turn this off because it's in your head. I feel like depression might grow up, and I feel like the suicide rate might grow too, because it's not something you can kind of get. Obviously, you can get it removed. That's what they're trying to advertise, I guess. But like, I don't like the idea of. I hate it. I don't understand, why would we want to do this to ourselves? Why would we want to push for this? You know?
Mm-hmm.
I work with technology all the time because that's my job, and I still hate it. I hate staring at a screen. I wish there was a simpler way of doing this. Like, it comes down to a simple choice. Like, if I was ever put in the position where, let's say I'm on my deathbed and they're like, okay, we can save you by, if putting this chip in your head, I would just say, no, I'm good. Because I don't want to live a life like that. I feel like I'm going to be the only human being without like technological advancements in my body when I grow up. I'm going to be living in the middle of nowhere by myself. Everybody else is going to have like their 3D augmented reality heads, and I'm just going to be like, no, I'm good. I'll be driving my old Mustang, fucking 1980 Mustang.
Or at that time, it's like the 2025 Mustang, and they're like, wow, vintage.
Vintage, yeah. Be like, wow, yeah. Oh, twin cylinder, huh? Yeah, it doesn't have Bluetooth. It still has the aux jack. What's an aux jack? You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. I don't know. I mean, it's scary to think about. Like, I mean, the advancements that we're making today, and just a couple years from now, it's crazy to think where we might be. Some scary stuff. I mean, live in the moment, I guess, but like, it still worries me. My children are gonna have to deal with this. And obviously your children, if you have any, are gonna have to deal with it as well. And it's like, it's just kind of a scary world that we might live in. I feel like it might bring more tension than peace, but we'll see. Maybe my predictions are wrong. Maybe we'll live a happy utopian life in the cyberpunk cities, but I doubt it. So let's go back to you. So you started off in Malaysia, and when did you leave? You left last summer around August, right?
So pretty much, if this is a good time to break down a general timeline of the trip, and then maybe you can ask questions.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. So pretty much graduated in May with you. June, I said goodbye to my family. And July, I took a flight off to Tioman Island, Malaysia. And I stayed on Tioman for 1 month, just doing odd jobs for a man named Hausang Lee. And I call him Orang Gila. Orang Gila in Bahasa Melayu, which is the Malaysian language, is crazy man.
Yeah, right.
That is. So just a quick story. I'll tell you my first morning there. So I arrived in the afternoon. He shows me my tent, which I'll be sleeping on, which is right on the beach. I put my backpack next to me. I sleep on the tarp of the tent, and I get woken up in the middle of the night, what feels like the middle of the night, to somebody unzipping my tent. A head pops through my tent, and it's Hausang. And he goes, "Ryan, come! The boat has crashed on the reef." So I get up. I start running down the path with him barefoot on this rocky path, and we go down to the jetty, or the boardwalk, and the boat Sunshine that was tied to the jetty was the rope snapped, and the boat came. The wake took it onto the beach. So we're stepping on this coral reef barefoot, and every time a wave comes, we push the boat. Every time a wave comes, push the boat, push it until it's a bit floating. He goes, "All right, hop up in the boat." I'm looking up at the bow of the boat, and it's about 2 body lengths ahead of me. It's a huge boat. Yeah. And I'm like, this is my first morning there. It's still dark out. It's about 4 a.m. And so finally I get my body over the side of the boat, and he says, "Okay, there's a long, it was a cut down tree in the boat. Push it away from the jetty so it doesn't crash. There was a storm in the night. That's why the rope broke." He tries to get up in the boat. He can't do it. So he's a little Malaysian man. So I take him by the hand. I throw him into the boat, pull him in. Now we're both in there. He's trying to start the boat while the waves are crashing us into the jetty.
Yeah.
I'm trying to push the boat away. The canopy ripped over the jetty. We're about to crash into it. He gets it started, and then we putt around for about an hour looking for a place to dock the boat. So we tie into a neighbor's mooring line, and now it's about 6 a.m. The sun's just coming up over the mountain on this little island called Pt.1, and we hop off the boat. We have one pair of fins and one mat and one snorkel. So I take the mat and the snorkel, and he takes the fin, and we swim back to shore. The sun's just coming up. We get back to shore.
That's actually crazy.
He takes a deep breath. He goes, "Island life. Let's go back to sleep."
So you started your first morning. And well, were you jet lagged first of all? Because that's a long flight, right?
Yeah, I had no time to be jet lagged.
Oh, you had no time.
When I showed up to the island, I couldn't find my host, so a bunch of little kids start picking through my stuff and start playing with my juggling balls, my hacky sacks, and my guitar.
Yeah.
And so there was no time to feel. There was only time to do.
Right. And so basically, your first morning there was like it was like a set piece in a movie. That's insane. It starts off with that's insane how you started off just like first morning there. You're not expecting much, and all of a sudden there's this boat that's beach. You need to get it off, and then you had to swim back to where you were sleeping. That's actually like hysterical. I feel like that's better than most movies I've seen over the past year. What the hell?
Yeah, so that's the first morning. So you can probably imagine we had a month of crazy adventures like that, mostly all with the boat, sunshine. Yeah. So we almost lost our lives many times at sea with this janky boat with Orangila, crazy man, driving. And I helped him with so many different adventures. We had 2 campsites there that we were building. So we were building structures, and one was called Genting, was the village. I also worked at a Malaysian restaurant there, and did labor during the day, restaurant at night, and played music at the restaurant. So I would play my guitar. And then we went to another campsite on the other side of the island called Asa, and that has a waterfall, like a world-renowned waterfall, and it was right in our backyard. So we would swim in there naked every day and bathe. And finally, a month comes. I'm ready to get off the island. A storm comes while we're putting to the mainland, and I have all my stuff with me, my little backpacker's guitar, my little backpack. Storm comes. There's a whole other story here. I don't know. Do we have the time to say it?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna ask a few questions before we get to it. Just so we have like a little bit of a filler here. So when you got to Malaysia, what were the people's reactions when you were there? Like, obviously, you're an American, and they're of their culture. Did they treat you differently? Did they treat you like shit, or did they treat you like very? Obviously, probably not like shit, right? They treated you very like not highly, but different, I guess. How what was that experience like?
Good question. So I flew into Singapore, and then I was trying to get over to the border of Malaysia, but having troubles because in Singapore they speak Malay as well, or Bahasa Melayu.
Right.
So I was having troubles. I didn't have small bills, so I ended up paying this guy a bunch of money for a taxi. A bunch of money in Malaysian ringgit, but not really much in US dollars.
Right.
And pretty much he taught me their language. The whole taxi ride, it was about 5 hours, and he taught me all the basics of the language. So by the time I got to the island, I was able to start speaking in their language. And so right away, I was accepted like family because I was making such an effort to learn their language. And as the time went on, as I really learned the language and I started speaking that instead of English, it was really just accepted as family.
Yeah. So
anytime they saw me and didn't hear me speak their language, there was disconnect, but almost just disconnect like tourists versus locals. Nothing race.
Right. So then when you worked at this, so when you were in Malaysia, you set up a camp and you worked at a restaurant. How was it like it? I mean, when I'm expecting this Malaysia restaurant, I'm expecting like and maybe this is a stereotypical thing. Maybe I shouldn't be expecting this, but like it wasn't like a restaurant, right? Like how we have it in America. It was probably like kind of like a lower end kind of deal. Like, how was that experience though?
Yeah, so this restaurant, so pretty much just to break this down, in Malaysia, there are three types of people. So if you're Malay, you're automatically Muslim. You follow the Islamic faith because that's mixed with their government.
Okay.
So if you are Malay, which means you're a descendant from Indonesia, then you practice Islam, and you're a practicing Muslim. You go to Muslim school, all this. And then there's Chinese Malay, and they're mostly Buddhist and Taoist, and they go to their own school, and they're kind of mixed with Chinese and then Malaysia. And then there's the Indians, and people from India, they have their own thing going as well. So there's so much amazing food, first off. And Hao Sang is Chinese Malay, and the guy Wong that I worked for, he's Chinese Malay as well. So on the island, this was like the main restaurant. So it's not like an Olive Garden exactly.
Well, right. I wasn't expecting an Olive Garden in Malaysia, but like, yeah.
Right. But it is a beautiful restaurant. So you walk in and it's nice. Not your typical restaurant. It's Wong and his wife Anna, and Wong is probably 55 and Anna is 23, and she's pregnant.
Really?
And that's the way it goes. Yeah. Hao Sang is 45 and Anna has a sister and a cousin and a niece. All three of those were up for Hao Sang to pick as his wife. So
oh my God.
They're 19, 23, and 26, something like this.
Yeah, that's crazy how it's different there. Wow. I would
totally, yeah.
Yeah, I would have never expected that. As far as like culture goes, you got to experience multiple sides and multiple religions. Did you like attend or not practice them, but did you get to experience them in a full form, do you think? Like both sides, the Buddhism and the Islam?
Actually, fortunately enough, so I'll continue with the timeline and I'll go into the religious aspect as well.
Okay.
So I get off the island eventually. I'll skip this adventure story for now.
Okay.
Maybe I'll come back to it in time.
All right.
I get off the island and I start traveling to my next workaway. I ended up working as a manager of a hostel. Hao Sang also had a hostel on the mainland in Malacca.
Yeah.
So I started working in Malacca, Malaysia, and I left from there after a week or two. I felt like I was overstaying my welcome with Hao Sang. Felt like I was going to die if I was with him any longer because we were kind of always doing some wacky stuff. So I continue going north to a new workaway, and this was an adventure camp. So I go there and I notice on my leg there's this infection, and pretty much the skin infection led me to the main city, the capital city of Malaysia called Kuala Lumpur. So I was in KL for a week going to the hospital to get this thing checked out.
Right.
And they gave me all the stuff for it, helped me out. And after this, during this time, I signed up for Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation. And this Vipassana was held in the mountains of Malaysia. So I hardly remember signing up for it. People I worked with at the Tioman restaurant, they had done that. So I got the notion of it when I was working at the restaurant, and during my downtime of skin infection healing, I signed up for it. It was September 11th. I knew I had to be in Kulim, Kedah, Malaysia, which is the northernmost part of Malaysia, on September 11th. So I always remember this. And I worked on a farm right by Kulim, 3 hours away.
Okay.
And it was on the island of Penang. And I was on Penang working for Wonder Wilder Farm for a Singaporean woman and her partner, Mei Shai, who is Chinese Malay. So she practices Taoism, Buddhism, and they also they're farmers, biodynamic farmers. So they follow the moon cycles and understand astrology and how it relates to farming and how it relates to. and how there's leaf days and flower days and root days and fruit days, all of these things.
Okay.
So being able to learn their spirituality, I got a good taste of Buddhism and Taoism on the farm.
Right.
So I'll leave it at that for now, and then I'll explain as the timeline goes on how I got the Islamic faith as well.
I'm gonna kind of pause you here for a second. For the biodynamic of farming, I've never heard of this. So it's like they farm based on the moon cycle and stuff.
That's right. So a general rule for biodynamic farming: 3 days before and 3 days after a new moon is when you should plant, and then 3 days before and 3 days after a full moon is when you should harvest. And there's blackout days when you shouldn't plant or harvest. There's different days for different types of plants.
Do you think they do this because of where they are in the world, because of like the land and like the geography of it?
Actually, the farm I was out in Colorado, they also did this.
Oh, they also did this too? Thing. Okay. Oh, I've never heard of this, because like I live by farms, right? And I don't really talk to the farmers and stuff, but like I don't think they do that. I think they just live their American lives. They plant and they grow, and it's like, that's interesting. So biodynamic farming, that's something I'm gonna have to look into. Right. Okay. Go back to your story. I was just curious by that.
No, that's cool, man. So continuing on, I stayed at the farm. So really quick, the story of me showing up to this farm. Again, I traveled to this island. Again, I don't know where I'm going. I start hitchhiking to where I thought the farm might be, and I show up and there's a farmer's market. I'm like, oh, this is promising, farmer's market, farm. Mm-hmm. So I show up to the farmer's market. A woman walks up to me and she goes, "Ooh, you play the guitar?" Because she sees it on my back. I go, yeah, I play the guitar. And she goes, "Can you play it?" I go, "Yeah, I can play it." And she goes, "Now?" I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "On that stage?" And she points to the stage. There's microphones and amps. And 5 minutes later, I'm all hooked up to their amps, and I'm playing at this farmer's market all my original songs that I've been playing on my travel streets. And I played for an hour, and afterwards I end up walking around this farmer's market, and there's all different vendors. It's all Chinese Malay farmer's market, but there's all different vendors of natural grown coffee from Malaysia, from organic cotton where they make clothing, all singing bowls with sound healing, which is where I was first exposed to sound healing.
Right.
So that lady that asked me if I could play the guitar, her name is Alicia, and she was actually my host for the next month.
Okay.
So very neat how that worked. Ended up working. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I can imagine Ryan Sutton walking around with this guitar strapped to his back, like the lone wanderer. It's just like that's hysterical to me in some like foreign country, and it just seems like such a sight. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I took a break from the farm. I went to Kulim Kada for the silent meditation. Hitchhiked up to the Vipassana Center, and for 10 days we would wake up at 4 a.m., meditate 10 hours a day, eat 2 small meals, and then go to sleep. Wake up the next day, 10 hours a day. So 100 hours in 10 days of meditation, silent, noble silence. So not looking at each other, not talking to each other, not holding doors for each other or passing things to each other. No writing or reading. Definitely no phones, no music, no playing music, no guitar, no singing. Just silence in the mountains.
Well, now, was that hard for you to do? Like, I know that you're more of a spiritual guy, and prior to this, you probably had obviously you had experience with meditation, but was that hard to do for 10 you said 10 hours a day for 10 days?
That's right.
So was that
hardest?
Well, go ahead.
The hardest part, Trevor, actually was sitting. Like, for us growing up in the U.S., we're always sitting in desks and chairs, and there's never a time you're sitting on the ground. So now I'm a pro sitter. Like, I'm probably the best sitter I know.
Right.
But it's like, that was so tough. My body was just, every time I would stand, I couldn't walk. My legs were all messed up.
That's
But
fucking
that
crazy.
was the hard part. The actual meditation was so blissful. It was
Did you?
everything that you could ever want to know, going internally with silence, with intention to really know it, and with good intention, good motivation, saying, I don't want to know this for myself to boost my ego. I want to know this so I can be better servant for the light and the love that needs to be here on earth.
Yeah.
So the meditation part was very simple and very beautiful.
Did you do this indoors or outdoors? I don't know if you said. I might have. You might have said it.
No, there was a Dhamma hall, so it's indoors.
Okay.
And luckily enough, this center had no mosquitoes. So, but it did have a lot of monkeys.
Oh, so wait, really? So was there monkeys just kind of roaming around while you were meditating?
Yeah, you saw the monkeys pretty rarely at the meditation studio, but on the island, monkeys had ransacked our shack and took all of our food.
Yeah,
and
no,
monkeys
that seems like
had,
something that would happen. Yeah.
Yeah, they're freaking rascals, man. They're really crazy.
I mean, they're nature, but yeah, no, monkeys are. I can just like imagine you like just meditating, and all of a sudden you see one walk by and steal your shit, and you're just like, well, can't say anything, can't do anything, let it go. Oh, there was something else I was gonna ask. So for meditation, was I something I've heard from other people and in stories and stuff. When you meditate, and I don't know, this could be just for certain people, but do you feel like your physical form? Do you feel like your body, like inside of you? You know what I'm talking about? Do you feel that? Like the energy inside your body?
Mm. So, a long way to answer this question, and it'll kind of continue with this. It's every day we would train. So, in the first 3 days, all we did for 10 hours each day, so 30 hours, we're just focusing on the skin above your upper lip and below your nostrils. All you did was feel the sensations that would come in above the upper lip and below the nostrils.
Right.
For 3 days, 10 hours a day. You would feel tickling, you would feel the air, you would feel your breath. And from there, we would expand. Okay, now feel it all over your face. Now feel it in your head. Feel the sensations come in down your shoulders and back and arms and legs, hips, and all this. And our job was solely to observe the sensations as they come in, not to react to them, not to say, ooh, that's a mosquito biting my leg, that's a mosquito biting my leg, don't like that, don't like that. It's only to say, oh, I feel 6 little legs touching my leg, and now I can feel a little needle going into my skin. I can feel it extracting blood. I can feel the insect on me becoming heavier and now flying away.
So you became more sensitive, basically.
Became more aware of the sensitivity, which we already are.
That's interesting. Well, for what I was talking about, was like I mean, I've done this before where I've kind of just sat in silence, and you just kind of focus on like feeling inside of your hand, basically. Like, say you were, okay, I'm gonna focus inside, or feeling, the feeling inside your hand. You can feel the energy inside your hand. I don't know if you've experienced this, but like that's something I've done before, and it's really neat to kind of like feel that, to feel the energy inside, like to know that you're something more than just a body. Like you can feel the energy from the fingertips all the way up your arm and to the shoulder and everything. That's probably not what I don't think that's not what you were focusing on, obviously, but like, I don't know if you've ever done that.
No, you're so right, Trevor. It pretty much, from that obscure example of the mosquito, you can reach a flow state. You can reach a flow state where you're observing sensations that come in. You can observe pretty much from our sixth sense, thinking. Anything that comes in our 6 senses, you can observe as it comes in, and pretty much all of these sensations are rising and passing constantly. And zoom out and see your body. It's an energetic body within your physical body, just like you're talking about. And in Chinese, it's Qi. In Eastern, it's prana or life force. It's the creation. It's Kundalini energy. All of these things are speaking of that energetic body, the etheric body. All of this is what you're speaking about, and what you felt is true.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, that probably makes more sense than what I was saying. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I agree with what you're saying, and it makes a lot more sense now. So, okay, we left off on your story where you were meditating. What happens after the 10 days of meditation?
Okay, so at that point, I was completely clear. I had nowhere to go, nothing to do. I hadn't contacted any workaways. I had nowhere to go. I'm in Malaysia. I have about 10 more days on my visa. I'd spent 80 days in the country already. I knew the language better than I had ever known it before, and I didn't know what to do. So there were some people, everyone started leaving, right? On the 10th day, they said, you can open your noble silence and you can go into noble speech now for the rest of your life. So we began talking to each other in little ways. People started leaving, and or this was the 11th day, sorry, because we did 10 full days. And so the 11th morning, people are leaving, people are cleaning up their rooms, and it's me and just a couple other people. And it was me, my friend Annabelle, and my friend Moana. And the three of us had no plans. Annabelle was going to Indonesia to surf in 5 days, but for 5 days he was clear. Moana had no plans. She was planning on going to Vietnam to reconnect with her family and her ancestors soon, but she didn't know when that was. So I said, hey guys, if we're just looking for a quiet place to keep up with our meditation, we can go back to this farm I was just working at, work 5 hours a day, and meditate for the rest of the time. And so that's what we did. The three of us went back. We went back to the Wonder Wilder farm with Alicia and Mei Shai, and I was playing music every day, and we were meditating all the time, and just at this bliss state. Moana and Annabelle ended up becoming lovers for that time, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful time. Us three living in this little broken down shack that I used to live in with 2 little mosquito nets, and we would meditate all the time. And from there, Annabelle left after some crazy stuff with Moana and I, just another adventure stories that, in time will come out.
Okay.
She left to Vietnam, and it was my time to go too. This was my 89th day of my 90-day visa in Malaysia upon entry. So I go to the northernmost island of Malaysia called Langkawi. I spend a day there, rent a motorbike, go around, swim in waterfalls naked, and meditate and play soccer with locals on the beach. And the next morning, I take a ferry to Seratani, which is the ferry city in Thailand. So I come into Thailand, and on my way off the ferry, I see this woman with heavy bags. So I help her with her bag, and she's so thankful. I walk through customs with her, carrying her bags, talking to her. She's so thankful. She's like, "Oh, I have a van. I can take you wherever you need to go." And so I was like, "Oh, thank you so much, but I actually don't have a hotel. I don't know what I'm doing. I just had to leave Malaysia." So she's like, "Well, take a ride with us, and whenever you want to get out, we're going to pass some cities on the way, so you can get out at any time." I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." So I sit in the back of this 12-person passenger van. The other 11 people come in. All my possessions that I have, all my worldly possessions are on my lap. We start driving 6 hours south of where we were. I thought we were already in the southernmost part of Thailand, but we started driving south. We stopped twice for prayer because they're all Muslim. And I find out that woman that I helped was a director of this school, and all of the people in the van were teachers at the school, and they were on this school trip. So they said, "Hey, Ryan, we love your style. We feel you out. We like your vibes. Come teach at our school and live with us."
We like your vibes. That's awesome. That seems like such a Ryan Sutton experience where they're just like, "Hey, man, come teach at our school. We like your vibes." Oh my god.
So for the next time I stayed at this woman's house. Her name is Serena, and due to the Islamic faith, she wasn't allowed to stay with me, so she stayed with her brother and her daughter, and I stayed in her house alone. Every day we got up at 7 a.m. and took this motorbike ride to the little school. So now we're in the deep south of Thailand, where Islam is finally not a legal thing. It's not a governmental thing, but it's a religious practice, spirituality. So it's a choice. All of the women are covered in hijabs and wearing saris or burqas, and they are just such beautiful people. So I go to this school the first day. All these kids are looking at me with their wide eyes and open jaws. They've never seen a white person before. Never, ever, ever. And so they're all hiding behind each other, each just hiding behind the next. And then when there's nobody left to hide behind, they all run away. And so
hey kids,
I get up.
let me play you a song real quick. You pull out your guitar, and they're all just like, "Holy shit, this is awesome! That's awesome."
Yeah. So I get in front of them on the microphone, and I'm like, should I speak in English or Bahasa Melayu? And they're like, well, Bahasa, they understand a dialect of. So I start saying hello to them. I'm like, selamat pagi. And then I'm like, terima kasih. My name is Ryan William, and I'm here to be your teacher. And so amazing times there, playing soccer with the kids, connecting. And they would pray 5 times a day. And
right.
They are very devout, religious. But the kids, this is the coolest part. This is like one of the coolest experiences of my whole journey. The kids ran up to me. This kid named Anas. He took me by the hand and he goes, I need to show you something. I need to show you something. And he couldn't speak English at all, but he's telling me this in Bahasa. Mm-hmm. And what he wanted to show me so bad was God. He's like, it's Allah. It's Allah. He's here for all of us. It's love. Love is here for all of us. It's not it's not one religion's God. It's nothing. It's everything. It's God. And he's so excited to tell me all about God. So we pray together. They adorn me with all of their wardrobe. And I practiced the Islamic faith in such a devout way for those days. We would do wudu, which is where you clean yourself before prayer 5 times a day. So we're clean, we're cleansed by the Spirit, we're in this beautiful religious ecstasy in this community. Every time Serena would enter her house, she would pray to Allah, to Assalamu alaikum, all of this. They taught me the prayers, they taught me how to connect with love. And Islam just means love. And that's what they are living out there. Right. So I was able to experience their religion and their spirituality and their philosophy on life, living it with them.
Yeah, so I was okay. I mean, from my perspective, right? I grew up a Catholic, and I still more or less, try to live out the Catholic faith. And I think that's what you were. I don't really know. I don't know your backstory as far as religion goes. Were you raised Catholic?
Yeah, I grew up Methodist. Grew up Methodist.
Okay, Methodist, and then and you continued that throughout high school, right?
Más o menos.
Okay, yeah, so a little bit. Was it like kind of a shocking experience? Was it different to be? Obviously, it was different, but like when you were practicing the Islam faith for a little while, was it just like a buffet kind of taste thing? Were you like, well, this is interesting, this is different? Were you analyzing it? Were you just kind of living in the moment at the right time? And like, you weren't comparing it to like your faith, or what you were raised with, right?
For me, so interesting question and hopefully interesting answer. I never defined myself as one religion. I always said, yes, I practiced Methodist, I practice Christianity,
right,
and now I practice Islam as well. I also practice Eastern, I also practice Buddhism, and I also practice meditation, and I also practice yoga. And all of these things are ways for us to connect with the divine. And the connection itself, like when you receive something in the mail and it's in an envelope, you're not like, holy cow, this is the holy envelope. This is the only envelope it could ever be sentence. It's like, no, it's the letter, it's what's on the letter, and it's who it's from, and it's the weight behind the words that are so meaningful. It's not about the envelope, the package it's given to you in, and it's not to define yourself with the envelope. So I practiced Islam just like I practiced yoga, and I learn and I completely experience it, not comparing to what I have done, but rather take what you need from it and leave the rest.
That's such a great way of putting that too. Like I mean, like I would agree with that. The idea of like it's not about the envelope, it's about what the the meaning behind the words. And like how I was telling you this, and how I live my life is the fact that it's my birthday, right? I don't ask for anything in gifts. I don't ask for anything that people don't have to give me anything. And if I do, ask for something, I want it to be meaningful rather than something expensive. I want it to have meaning between us. I think that means more to a person than something that has value to it. I think the meaning brings the value to that. So I totally get what you're saying with the whole letter thing, and that's really interesting that you practice. You're more you like to practice a multitude of things. And that's how you center your life around that, as opposed to sticking to one and focusing on that. I feel like that enlightens you a little bit more than the rest of us, because you've experienced a lot, obviously, but like being able to practice more than one kind of religious belief and just kind of not really mixing all of them together, but being able to have those options and being able to just kind of say, okay, I've done this and I've done that and that one, and just being able to spread that out. I feel like that gives you a little bit more insight on life itself.
Good analysis. That's
good.
Yeah.
Are you saying that sarcastically? Because
No, sorry. If you were able to see my face, you would know that it was not sarcasm.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's good. I mean, I'm also not the brightest person in this room, clearly, but no, I understand what you're trying to get at, and maybe it's floating over my head, and I'm just not totally understanding.
No, dude. I guess in an imperfect way, I was saying I appreciate you for seeing me and seeing the beauty in it, rather than saying, like, I told my aunt that all what I just told you, and she goes, "Oh, so you don't pray to the same God as me?" Well, and I just, I'm not trying,
I wouldn't say that. I say that you're doing, you're still praying. I would say you're still praying to a God, but I wouldn't say like all of what you're praying with, like if you're using whether your practices from Methodist or whatever. It still relates to the same subject. It's still all connected in a certain way. Right. So it's all connected rather than being, even if they're different practices, you're still, connected in some way. Okay.
Yeah. Agreed.
Agreed. I agree with that too. I'm going to take a break here for a second from the story, and I want to talk about your perspective on life, because you had mentioned something about if it's steady. I don't know the saying you use, and I should know it. It's steady, sturdy, and whatever. But how do you perceive life? Because I know you talked about it with me, but I want you to share it with the rest of the people.
Yeah. Okay. So. Okay.
Oh.
So, sorry. I just need to take a breath.
No, you're good. I can do a distraction. I'll go grab my guitar and play shitty chords.
Okay, so pretty much humans struggle. That's a fact. Even if we're in this utopian society where all you have to do is go to the supermarket and all of nature's food is right there for you, and when you go to cook, all you have to do is press a button and there's heat, and all you have to do is turn up the thermostat and you're warm, or put a blanket on, and you don't question these things. Yet we still make our own misery. Always. We will always make our own misery. And that's because human vision is imperfect. And that's okay. But it is. To admit that human vision is imperfect, so we can see things as beautiful. And right now, I'm going to take my copper vessel that I'm looking at right now. It's my water bottle. So humans are able to see this water bottle as beautiful. I'm like, dang, it has a nice shape to it. You know, it's nice to the hand. It fits well. It feels good. It looks good. It's strong. I see it as beautiful. I see it as steady. I've dropped it many, many times, and it's still holding up. Like, it still holds water. It's steady. I see it as supported. I still haven't lost it. I'm able to see it as beautiful, steady, and supported. Supported being, I haven't lost it. It's supported here in this reality. It's supposed to be here. It is loved and nurtured. For humans, I say you're supported if you are fed. If you have food, if you have nourishment, you are supported here in this reality.
Mm-hmm.
So humans are able to see beauty, support, steadiness. But this golden vessel, from my eyes, is imperfect. Yeah, I've dropped it a few times. It's scuffed up. In the past, maybe it was perfect. Maybe it was. Maybe in the future it can be perfect again if all the paint comes off and then there's, you know, some darker coloration in the bottom. Maybe it'll be perfect in the future, but it needs some work. It's not perfect. It's imperfect. So from human vision, we can see things as steady, supported, beautiful, but imperfect. So that's when we call upon God's vision. That's when meditation comes in, prayer comes in, the power of now, the eternal now, breath, coming into this moment to say, God, or creator of all creation, or life force of life force, or the mystery behind all of this, the one that gives us warmth. Whatever you pray to, whatever you are talking to, whether it's internal or external, whatever it is, say, God, I can see this vessel as steady, supported, and beautiful, but it's imperfect. It needs work. It needs work. It'll be better in the future, or it was better in the past, or, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have gotten my hair cut. I was perfect before, or, oh man, maybe in 2 months when my hair's longer, I'll be perfect. All of these things. You ask God, I ask for your perfect vision. And just as you ask, it's granted to you, because you ask and you shall receive. So now I can see this bottle still as beautiful, steady, and supported, but I also see it as the most important thing. I see it as perfect in this moment, en este momento, en esta realidad. In this moment, in this reality. I see the scuff as marks of character. I say, wow, you know, if this was just a perfectly astute bottle with no scuffs, no marks, no cracks, it would have been without character. It would have been without life. But this is a living, breathing vessel, and I appreciate it as it is. It's perfect in this moment. It holds water. It's heavy, it's supported, and it's steady, and it's beautiful. And without meditation, without bringing it into the moment, human vision can only see what could have happened, what should have happened, what would have happened, or what happened. Human vision can only see what will happen, what could happen, what should happen, what would happen. When we take all those away, then you can physically take your hands and push to the left, push to the right, and find in line with your center line. Now, this moment, este momento. And the crazy part about it is what that kid was trying to show me. Anas in Thailand. Mm-hmm. He was saying, this God is not for a certain religion. This God is not for a certain timing or for certain people. This God is always here. This moment is always here. And as soon as you step into this moment, you're completely concentrated. Automatically, you're completely healthy and completely at bliss. Because disease cannot survive in the present moment. Sickness cannot survive in the present moment. Fear and pain cannot survive in the present moment. Fear, pain, sickness, depression, all of that is due to what we feel happened in the past or what we feel will happen in the future. The present moment is perfect, and that is complete vision. So what we are here to do, to bring it back to the big question you asked, what is my philosophy or what is my life? What is life?
Yeah.
It is to live the human experience and ask the creator of all creation, life force of life force, ask God to fill in the blanks where we see imperfectly. And as soon as you start seeing things perfectly, I treat this golden vessel as respectfully, as perfectly as I would treat my sister or my future daughter or my mother or a stranger on the street or a dog I see that's looking pretty awesome or a dog I see that has 3 legs or a person I see in a wheelchair or a stapler gun that I usually would throw around, but I see it as perfect now and I see it as a helpful tool. It's to be here completely,
In the
to
moment.
love
Yeah.
in all you do. En este momento, en esta realidad.
In the moment. That's a perfect way of putting it, because that's something I've kind of learned to live by in simpler terms. Basically, it's like everybody is human. Everybody has their own uniqueness, and people are gonna have their bad days. So you should never let it get you down. But you should focus on yourself in the moment. Don't focus on the future, and learn from the past, not live in the past. And that's honestly gonna put you so much. It's gonna push you forward more than you think it would. All right.
Also.
We're gonna go back to the story. So you were in Thailand, and the kid showed you Allah and everything, and how and so what was after that?
Okay, so they were just getting out of school, so they were on summer break, and so they said, okay, for a month you can come fishing with us, you can come hiking, you can do whatever the villagers do, and then when we start back up school, you can be our full-time English teacher. So I saw that opportunity. I loved that opportunity, but I knew it wasn't right for me. I knew that I had to continue my journey. So I traveled north through Thailand. So I traveled to Koh Phangan thinking that it was an adventure island where I could do some rock climbing. Because I've been carrying around these rock climbing shoes, my passion, with me. And I have this tiny little backpack. So rock climbing shoes have been strapped on the outside. And when we sunk the boat, or was very close to sinking the boat, all of my stuff was waterlogged, my guitar, everything. And so anyway, finally I have these shoes and I want to be able to climb. So I go to Koh Phangan thinking it's an adventure island. It turns out that it's a party island. There's all these foreigners that are just there to party. So I'm still on the meditation grind. Like I'm in that world. I'm silent. Like I haven't talked since I left. I just was silent, and I would say little things in Bahasa Melayu. And I was learning Thai at the time, or trying to, but it's a hard language. And so I was not in the mood for parties. So I got there in the night. In the morning, I left for Koh Tao, which was the adventure island. I got my open water certification for scuba diving, and I went on all these crazy, awesome hikes and lived in the ocean for a bit. And after my open water certification, I was eating at this restaurant alone and just in this meditative, which I was kind of just living in this bliss, just doing my thing silently and just living. And I see this guy and he sits down at the table next to me and I say, hey, I see you're alone. You can sit at the table with me if you feel. If not, totally good too. So he looks at me, looks me up and down, comes over to my table. His name is Victor. And he had been traveling for 10 years out of his backpack. And he hadn't been home. He didn't have a home anymore. 4 years in the Amazonian jungle in South America. And he was a nomad, complete nomad. He started telling me about these healing techniques that he had practiced. One being called biomagnetism, where it's based off the Chinese meridians of the human body. And you take and pretty much it creates order within your body from the magnetic pole. Where there's disorder, it creates order. So he said, we can practice this together. So I start staying with him. We get an apartment together and we order the magnets. We're planning on practicing. He says, okay, I'm moving to Vietnam. Come follow me and we can practice together. So the magnets ended up not coming in the mail. I lost my credit card. I overstayed my visa in Thailand.
Ooh.
So I was detained in their airport for a day, and I wasn't allowed to leave, and I had to give them money, but I didn't have money because my credit cards were gone. And so all of these things happened, and I go over to Vietnam, and man, there's so much to this story. But I go to Hanoi, and I show up to this hostel, and I meet up back with Victor. I tell him that the magnets aren't there, and he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go. I bought a motorbike, and I'm gonna go tour around the country. And so that day, I bought a motorbike. The next morning, we were planning on leaving and touring the country. And the morning of, we're about to leave, and I'm like, Victor, I'm not feeling this. You go alone. And so he went off. I stayed behind, and I contacted my old friend Moana, who I stayed at the Wonder Wilder farm from Vipassana. Yeah. And he was at a farm just south of me, closer to Ho Chi Minh in the south. So I packed up my bike. I was planning on leaving the next day. I leave, I get an hour out of the city, and I crash the bike, and I put my foot down, my sandal snaps, my foot snaps, I roll over, I fall onto my back, and my guitar was on my back, and my guitar saved my life, or at least saved me from that injury.
Did you lose your guitar then?
No, the guitar was okay.
Oh, dude, that's all you need in life is the guitar. That's awesome.
Seriously, though. I'm so blessed. All my were squished, though. I had like a bushel of bananas to last me for the trip, and all of them were squished. But, I'm not so upset about it. A little upset about it. So I went to the hospital.
Right. And I'm going to stop you for a second. So this motorbike crash, when I'm thinking, and this is on like a country road, basically. Right, this is just kind of like a long road. There's no like hills or anything, right? It was moderately like safe. I guess that's what I'm trying to ask.
So going around the city, the driving is just absolutely crazy. It's like when you see a school of fish in the water and all of them are moving together,
right?
And it's like, how are they not crashing into each other? It's like, so I go through all of the city driving for a week, and then I get out of the city, hour outside of the city. It's like that country road you're talking about.
Okay.
Getting outside of the city, almost like in the U.S. And there's dust on the road, and so this guy is coming. An oncoming rider is coming at me, and he goes to cross my lane, but he cuts me off. So I pull the bike and hit the brakes to avoid crashing with him.
Yeah.
And I just like that, and then he pulls my bike to the side. My bike's crashed. My mirror is broken. My foot's just bloody. And he pulls my bike aside, and he gives me a thumbs up, a smile, and then he goes off. And
wow, what a real help.
Yeah, really. So I look up the nearest hospital, and I ride my bike with one foot on the side of this highway, and the mirror's broken, and I'm just looking like the most sorry son of a gun there's ever been. And I show up to this clinic, and I show them my foot, and they're like, no, we can't take you here. And so I go to a different hospital. So much to this story. So ended up getting x-rays. They said it was broken. So I go to send my mom pictures. I put it against the taxi window. I'm going back to the hostel, and I had these crutches, and I left the bike there, and I put it against the taxi window, dropped the x-rays in the taxi window, like into the door. So I ended up having to go to another hospital. I stay there all night, and I'm not helped. All my wounds are open. So from there, I got MRSA, this other skin infection, because I was just in this cot, which was not clean, and in this Vietnamese busy hospital. And then I went home.
Oh, so you just came back. You just came back to America for a while.
Yeah, I tried to hobble around hostels for a few days, just crutching around, and I was doing okay, but it just was not the place. And I had 4 months of healing ahead of me before I could walk again.
I do not blame you for coming back. That would have sucked, just kind of go around in crutches in a foreign land, you know?
Yeah. Yup.
And so Well, okay, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but like, so you came back to America. You didn't go back to. You didn't travel outside of the country after that, right? Or did you travel outside of the country and I'm wrong?
Mm,
Oh,
So I, for 4 months, I was on crutches, and I finally was good for the last month of those. After 3 months, I started building my Subaru into a camper and built the bed in the back of it, and I packed it all up. I didn't know where I was going. I started going back on workaway. Found this farm in Colorado, and as soon as I could, I drove out there and started working for Elk Run Farm in Boulder, Colorado.
and so this is the most recent story, right? This is the whole Colorado farming thing. That's just recently. When did you drive down to, or when did you start your drive down to Colorado?
March 11th, I left
S-
Hamburg.
Just
And yeah.
2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't know it was that. I didn't know it was that close. So
Mm-hmm.
what was it, July to up until about like I guess November, right? That's when you were out
Yeah.
of the country and you came back and then you left March down to Colorado. And how long was the
Right.
drive?
24 hours or something.
And okay, well I'm not gonna ask you that did you drive down for all 24 hours? You definitely stopped. But
No, yeah, I had a bed with me right in the back of my
that's right.
Subaru,
That's
so
right.
I would just sleep when
Did you have any unique experiences on your drive down? Did you stop anywhere?
So the stops there were some cool ones, but nothing that couldn't be summed up in a picture. For
Okay.
me, what couldn't be summed up in a picture was the magnetic pole coming from the west. So as we know, like sun sets in the west, so you're going over 60 miles per hour, you're going 75 miles per hour, so you can literally follow the sun and make it an eternal day. And that's the most magical thing that I've ever experienced is driving west. And as you get closer to the mountains, you can literally feel them. It's like going on autopilot and it's just pulling you in like a fish on a line. And finally, I was planning on taking a 9-day road trip out, and I ended up doing it in 2.5 days, just driving straight through because I was like it felt like it was the moon pulling me in like the tide.
Wow.
So there was that. That was really special.
Would you have like if you were to ever go back to Colorado, would you have taken your time driving, taking a 9-day trip as opposed to a 2-day trip, do you think?
It sounds so good in theory, but I think the same thing probably would happen, honestly.
Just
It's
it would pull you right back there.
yeah,
That's
all the
interesting.
things. Yup.
Well, I was gonna say like I keep comparing you to Chris McCandless, and for those that don't know, the Into the Wild book or movie, if you watched it in high school, because I know some people had to read it in our high school. The story of Chris McCandless is that he ran away from home. Obviously, you didn't run away from home, but he traveled across the country up to Alaska, and he eventually died there in what is called the Magic Bus, which was his little sanctuary. And he tried to live out in the wild for a long time, and he didn't make it, obviously. And I think the story was that he ate the wrong kind of berry after almost starving to death because he couldn't cook food correctly. He messed that all up. But just his journey, I mean, his journey from his hometown all the way to Alaska, he had met a lot of people. And he was a very wholesome and presentable guy. He was never trying, he was never an asshole about everything. And he had lived his life out in such a nice way, in such a like calming way. And you definitely live a lot of those qualities out where you're open, you're always able to help others. I mean, like that like you were saying earlier with the lady on the ferry boat with helping her bags. That's such a Ryan Sutton thing to do. And I wanted to say that. It's like you would do that, and it's such an awesome thing to have someone like that, who's not afraid to help other people. And it's like we need more people like that in this world. Unfortunately, the times haven't brought us that. And I try to live out my best life, but I never come close to what you do, and it's insane.
You don't need, man. You're doing just perfect.
I'm
You're
trying. Wouldn't say perfect, but I'm trying. But yeah.